Apostasy, the great beginnings of. With the lapse of time, changes for the worse had taken place in many Christian churches. Gross corruptions of the pure doctrines of the gospel had appeared. Self-righteous legalism and Judaic ritualism on the one hand, and false philosophy, the boasted wisdom of the Gnostics on the other, had perverted the minds of many, corrupting them from the simplicity which is in Christ. Sects had arisen in the church which denied the divinity of Christ and the atoning character of his death. Tares had been sown by the enemy among the wheat, and were already flourishing on every side. It appeared as though the Antichrist, so long before foretold by Daniel and so emphatically predicted by Paul, might speedily come, springing up as a horn or ruler among the kings of the divided Roman Empire, and exalting himself as an overseer in the Christian church, in whose symbolical temple it was foretold he would sit supreme, clothed with divine honors and prerogatives, and deceiving many to their eternal destruction. These things were to be, and the times seemed dark enough to indicate that they might even then be at hand. History Unveiling Prophecy, H. Grattan Guinness, D. Introduction, pp. 9-10. New York, Fleming H. Rayvale Company, copyright 1905. Apostasy, Sun Worship. Diocletian, Roman Emperor, 284-305 A.D., himself, though he paid so much deference to the older faith as to assume the title of Jovius, as belonging to the Lord of the world, yet, on his accession, when he would exculpate himself from all concern in the murder of his predecessor Numerian, appealed in the face of the army to the all-seeing deity of the sun. It is the oracle of Apollo of Miletus, consulted by the hesitating emperor, which is to decide the fate of Christianity. The metaphorical language of Christianity had unconsciously lent strength to this new adversary, and in adoring the visible orb, some, no doubt, supposed that they were not departing far from the worship of the Son of Righteousness. The History of Christianity, Henry Hart Millman, D. Book 2, Chap. 9, Volume 2, p. 215, New York, A. C. Armstrong and Son, Apostasy, the Man of Sin. Let no man deceive you by any means, for that day shall not come, except there come a falling away first, and that man of sin be revealed, the son of perdition, who opposeth and exalteth himself above all that is called God, or that is worshipped, so that he as God sitteth in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. 2 Thess. 2-3. 4. The day of Christ shall not come, except there come the apostasy first. The apostasy here described is plainly not of a civil, but of a religious nature, not a revolt from the government, but a defection from the true religion and worship, a departing from the faith. 1 Tim. 4:1. A departing from the living God. Heb. 3:12. As the word is used by the apostle in other places. In the original it is the apostasy, with an article to give it an emphasis. The article being added, as Erasmus remarks, signifies that famous and before predicted apostasy. So, likewise it is ha anthropos hamartios, the man of sin, with the like article and the like emphasis, and street, Ambrose, that he might express the force of the article, hath rendered it that man, as have likewise our English translators. Dissertations on the Prophecies, Thomas Newton, D.P. 439, London, B. Blake, 1840. Apostasy, the great, primitive aspect changed. In the interval between the days of the apostles and the conversion of Constantine, the Christian commonwealth changed its aspect. The Bishop of Rome, a personage unknown to the writers of the New Testament, meanwhile rose into prominence, and at length took precedence of all other churchmen. Rites and ceremonies, of which neither Paul nor Peter ever heard, crept silently into use, and then claimed the rank of divine institutions. Officers for whom the primitive disciples could have found no place, and titles which to them would have been altogether unintelligible, began to challenge attention, and to be named apostolic. The Ancient Church, William D. Killen, D. Preface to Original Edition, pp. 15-16, London, James Nisbet & Co., 1883. Apostasy, the great, quick development of. 100 years after the death of the Apostle John, spiritual darkness was fast settling down upon the Christian community, and the Fathers, who flourished toward the commencement of the 3rd century, frequently employ language for which they would have been sternly rebuked, had they lived in the days of the apostles and evangelists. The ancient church, William D. Killen, D. 2, seconds 2, chap. 5, p. 418. London, James Nisbet and Co., 1883. Apostasy, the Great, adopting pagan rites. Confiding then in the power of Christianity to resist the infection of evil, and to transmute the very instruments and appendages of demon worship to an evangelical use, and feeling also that these usages had originally come from primitive revelations and from the instinct of nature, though they had been corrupted, and that they must invent what they needed, if they did not use what they found, and that they were moreover possessed of the very archetypes, of which paganism attempted the shadows. The rulers of the Church from early times were prepared, should the occasion arise, to adopt, or imitate, or sanction the existing rites and customs of the populace, as well as the philosophy of the educated class. Development of Christian Doctrine, John Henry Cardinal Newman, pp. 371, 372. London, Longmans, Gray & Co., 1906. Apostasy, the Great, Ritual of Roman Paganism. They, Roman pagans, 4th century, are delighted, in fact, with gold and jewels and ivory. The beauty and brilliancy of these things dazzled their eyes, and they think that there is no religion where these did not shine. And thus, under pretense of worshipping the gods, avarice and desire are worshipped. The more ornamented are the temples and the more beautiful the images, so much the greater majesty are they believed to have, so entirely is their religion confined to that which the desire of men admire. These are the religious institutions handed down to them by their ancestors, which they persist in maintaining and defending with the greatest obstinacy. Nor do they consider of what character they are, but they feel assured of their excellence and truth on this account, because the ancients have handed them down, and so great is the authority of antiquity that it is said to be a crime to inquire into it, and thus it is everywhere believed as ascertained truth. The Divine Institutes, Lactantius, Book 2, Chap. 7, Ante-Nicene Fathers, Volume 7, p. 50. New York, Charles Scribner's Sons, 1907. Apostasy, the Great, in the 4th century. In the course of the 4th century, 2 movements or developments spread over the face of Christendom, with a rapidity characteristic of the Church, the one ascetic, the other ritual or ceremonial. We are told in various ways by Eusebius, that Constantine, in order to recommend the new religion to the heathen, transferred into it the outward ornaments to which they had been accustomed in their own. Development of Christian Doctrine, John Henry Cardinal Newman, p. 373. London, Longmans, Green & Co., 1906. Apostasy in the 7th century. The Christians of the 7th century had insensibly relapsed into a semblance of paganism. Their public and private vows were addressed to the relics and images that disgraced the temples of the East. The throne of the Almighty was darkened by a cloud of martyrs, and saints, and angels, the objects of popular veneration, and the Caliridian heretics, who flourished in the fruitful soil of Arabia, invested the Virgin Mary with the name and honors of a goddess. The History of the Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire, Edward Gibbon, Chap. 50, Par. 13, Volume V. p. 105. New York, Harper and Brothers. Apostasy, Great Changes due to. If the Christian apostles, Street Peter or Street Paul, could return to the Vatican, they might possibly acquire the name of the deity who is worshipped with such mysterious rites in that magnificent temple. At Oxford or Geneva, they would experience less surprise, but it might still be incumbent on them to peruse the Catechism of the Church, and to study the orthodox commentators on their own writings and the words of their master. The History of the Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire, Edward Gibbon, Chap. 50, Par. 42, Volume V. p. 167. New York, Harper and Brothers.